Hey, welcome everyone. Thank you for bearing with me while I was getting everything set up. It's a bit chaotic in the house today. Good to see you already on the call. Hi to James and Richard and David, Love and Freedom, Kareen and Eileen, Conrad. Hi, Conrad. Your video is getting rave reviews. And hi to everyone else who's on here. So it's great to see you. And I'm recording this. Let me just put original sound for musicians on. Okay, cool. So as always, if you would like to come on and speak on the People Speak Out, share your voice, share what's coming up for you, any news that you'd like to share with us, then please do put your hand up in terms of the symbol, which is in the React. There's a little hands up symbol that puts you to the top of the screen, so I know to come to you. But while we're waiting for people to put their hand up, we're going to do a short alignment, and then I'm going to give an opening intro on my saga with magistrates. First of all, Worcester Magistrates Court, then it was switched to Kidderminster on Friday, and I've just managed to get through on the phone after 5 times trying this morning. And so we'll go into that a little bit. But first of all, let's just do an alignment. It's always so wonderful just to spend 60 seconds to fully land in the space by straightening our spine, putting our feet flat on the floor, uncross everything so that we're really nicely connected to earth, but also in that vertical connection to source energy, and to take 3 long deep breaths in through the nose and blowing out slowly over the bottom lip. And those of you who've been following Aubrey Marcus, who I'm a great fan of, he was saying about how the breath, the sound of Yahweh, is essentially, Yahweh is the sound of the breath, like in spiritus. So the breath is so powerful at calming our nervous system, at getting us in touch with all that is energy. So those 3 deep breaths in through the nose and blowing out slowly over the bottom lip. Really good breaths to calm the nervous system so that you're widening your window of tolerance. So as I was going into court on Friday, just remembering to take those 3 long deep breaths, because these systems and courts and the authorities are deliberately designed to activate us into fight-flight response, or sometimes freeze. And what happens if you're activated is the frontal cortex of your brain closes down and you cannot think straight, which is why it's very crucial when you go to court. I've learnt this, because it's like your mind goes blank and all of the things you just thought you should say, you completely forget, because your brain literally shuts down with the trauma response, with the fight flight. So what I've learnt to do is to type out a sheet of just short statements, so that you've got like a little nuggets of things to say, like a little script. Now this came in very handy on Friday for reasons which I'll explain. Now I was in court for the 3rd time, and this was over an alleged speeding offence. Now I know that there's a myriad of different tactics that we, the people, are deploying to deal with these situations. So, and I know, like, allegedly Dave has got his way and Michael Sivier's got his way, but I took my way, which is rooted in common law. And I was very fortunate for all 3 hearings that Dean of Buxton came along with me. Now, he doesn't actually act as a Mackenzie friend anymore, because they've changed the system in that you have to fill out a form and declare yourself as a Mackenzie friend, and you have to give your name and address. And as Dean refuses to conform, he refuses to fill out any forms, because he does not wish to conform with the system or inform the system about himself. So he just sat at the back of the court, although his intervention did save the day on Friday. So I have been actually dealing with this on a common law approach, because my starting point was to question the authority of West Mercia Police, that they do not have authority or jurisdiction over me, and then of course they send. So basically, I do not understand your letter. Kindly produce the obligation upon which you rely for you to have jurisdiction over I. If a crime has been committed, please advise who is the victim. Your offer to contract is declined. So that was my starting point. I refused to fill in the form that they send you on the basis that I was exercising my right to remain silent. And they basically said, right, then we're going to take you to magistrate's court. So the first hearing was a directions hearing, because I had stated I require a trial by jury, because I wanted to challenge the legislation. And at the directions hearing, they said, no, the legislation says you're not allowed a trial by jury. It has to be heard by magistrates. So essentially, the legislation the government has legislated away our common law rights to a trial by jury and our right to remain silent, which of course is unlawful. Now, the slight fly in the ointment is, of course, a driving licence is a legal fiction. So essentially, by agreeing to have a driving licence, essentially you have consented to the terms and conditions of the driving licence. So anyway, so I went then back to Worcester Magistrates Court in November, and I stated I do not consent to the jurisdiction of this court. I require a trial by jury, and they're like, the legislation says you can't have one. And anyway, it couldn't be dealt with because there wasn't enough time, because of I didn't get into the court until about 4:30. So they relisted it for Friday. So I'm just going to tell you the first two statements I opened with. After I'd given my name, I'm commonly known as Rachel Eleanor Love, and they asked my date of birth. I said I have no knowledge of that information because I wasn't present. I wasn't consciously present. Anyway, so once they'd established my identity, I asked them two questions. Number one, is this a criminal or a civil matter? To which the judge replied, it's criminal. So then I asked the question, do I have the right to remain silent? And he said, yes and no. So I repeated the question, do I have the right to remain silent? And he said, well, yes, you do, but it may harm your trial if you remain silent. So once I'd established those two things, firstly, they're saying I'm a criminal. Secondly, they're confirming I have the right to remain silent. That at that point I said, I'm here under duress. I do not consent to the jurisdiction of this court. I require a trial by jury at Derby Crown Court. And then he says, you can't have one. I said, I am innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt. I require a trial by jury. And then he says, oh, such and such legislation says you can't have one. To which I replied, no government can legislate away my lawful rights. To which he replied, it's in the legislation and we're dealing with the legislation and blah, blah, blah. And I said, Gandhi, I quoted Gandhi. Gandhi said, it is the people's duty not to cooperate with unjust legislation. It is the people's duty, not privilege. It's their duty. It's our duty not to cooperate with unjust legislation. And then he said, well, we're going to proceed anyway. And then he said to the clerk, does she plead guilty or not guilty? And the clerk said, she pleads not guilty. I said, no, I have never entered a plea. I do not consent to the jurisdiction of this court. I require a trial by jury. And then he said, if you keep interrupting, I shall hold you in contempt. He said, either sit down or leave the court, or I hold you in contempt. And I said, and by that point he called security, the first batch of security, to which I replied, I am simply standing in my lawful rights. And then he repeated it again, either sit down or leave the courtroom, or I hold you in contempt if you keep interrupting. And then I repeated again, I'm simply asserting my lawful rights. And then I delivered a sentence which Dean had informed me beforehand, which I'd written down. If I have caused any offence, I apologise, as this was not my intention, because there needs to be willful intent to be a criminal, to be held contempt of court. Anyway, at this point, he's like, call security. And then Dean intervened and said, Rachel, and he's not technically not allowed to speak, but he said, Rachel, at this point, you have to either sit down or leave the court. And I'm like, I'm looking at him and I'm like, but I'm kind of thinking, I don't want to leave. I want to see this through. But he could see that he was going to hold me in contempt. So I left the court, at which point the main security came in, which is the G4S guys that wear the white shirts and the black ties. And they said, you need to go back in the court. I said, the judge has just asked us to leave. And then he said, wait here, we're going to go and check with the judge. And then I was left with the other two earlier security, the guys on the gate when we came in, one of whom winked at me. And anyway, and then the main security came out and said the judge hasn't found her in contempt, we can't touch her. At which point Dean and I left and went and sat outside, by which point I was shaking. And then Dean said, you were very close to being arrested, put in the cells, and they would have put you in the cells, held you till 5 p.m, then brought you back up and charged you with contempt, which is 6 months in prison. So I was sitting there, and then the clerk to the court came out and said, the trial is continuing. Do you want to come in and listen to the police officer give evidence against you? And I said, I am too traumatised to re-enter the court. I was accused of being in contempt for standing in my lawful rights. And then Dean said, why don't you put a statement into the court? And so luckily, because I had typed this out and I had an extra spare copy, I was able to tear off a chunk of it, sign it, date it, and put the time of it on it. And I sent it back into the court. And it basically repeated what I'd said. I'm here under duress. I do not consent to the jurisdiction of this court. I require a trial by jury at Derby Crown Court. I'm innocent until proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt. No government can legislate away my lawful rights. Gandhi said it is the people's duty not to cooperate with unjust legislation. And then Thomas Jefferson said, this is everything I'm thinking after witnessing what happened to Rog. I want to throw in everything, including the kitchen sink. So I put here, Thomas Jefferson said, I consider trial by jury as the only anchor ever yet imagined by man, by which a government can be held to the principles of its constitution. It's interesting he used the word anchor, because it's the anchor which takes maritime law, anchoring it back to the land. That's why Thomas Jefferson said anchor. And then I put here, the booklet states there must be a separation of power between government, the police, and the justice system. Then I put, I do not understand, I do not consent, I require a trial by jury at Derby Crown Court. This is my lawful right. If I have caused any offence, I apologise, as this was not my intention. I leave under my own volition. So that was my statement that I put back into the court. So I just managed to get through, because they said, we'll put this into the court and you're going to have to leave. And Dean said, let's get out of here. They said, you'll have to phone to find out what happened. So I managed to get through finally this morning, and they basically said they have not managed to determine my case, and the matter is still with the legal advisor to the court and the judge. Now bear in mind that they had all afternoon, I was the only case listed on Friday. The fact that they have not been able to determine a verdict and a judgment, and they've said it's an incomplete court order, and it's he's not sure if I was found guilty or not. He couldn't tell me the name of the judge either, which I asked for. So it's hanging in the balance. But it was kind of like, oh my God. So anyway, that's my story. Apologies for taking up the first chunk of the call. I was going to do a video at the weekend, but instead I decided to go and to take some time out and go and visit Conrad. And if you haven't watched Conrad's video, please watch it, because it's beautiful. His amazing land that he's bought in his mystery location. And it was amazing to talk to Conrad. So I gave priority to Conrad this weekend just to take some time, because I do feel it's so important for us to, if we're dealing with the false matrix, to step back and to realign and recalibrate, to go into nature and to compensate, and to focus a lot of our energy onto the success stories of people who are living the truth of living in, as Conrad said, in natural law. So I welcome all of your input. I know it can be a massive turn-off talking about law and legal things, but to me it's the fundamental, crucial pivot is these lawful rights. So anyway, I'm going to come to David, Love and Freedom, to start off, and anyone else who wants to come on, please put your hand up. So David, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Yeah. Hi. Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Hi, David. Yes, I can.
Hello. I'm in my car today, so it's mobile love and freedom today. I don't usually carry my placard in the car. I don't know why it's in my car really, but
Oh,
there
that's great. It's perfect.
you go. Yeah, so thank you very much for sharing your experience, Rachel. It was very courageous of you to to challenge a judge, or they call the judge, and this so-called legal system. I've had my own experience personally. During lockdown, I was arrested 5 times in different places for peacefully demonstrating against the lockdown. I've been in court, I think it was 4 times during that period as well. 3 times in the magistrates' court and once in the Crown Court, which is a bit surreal. And something which the last 5 years has taught me is just how my view of the legal system, the so-called courts and the police and whatever else. I used to have a lot of respect for the courts. I used to think, only criminals go into courts, they would never pick on anybody else, But I think the last 5 years is suddenly my respect for the courts and the police and the court system is completely plummeted, where I have no respect for them at all. I think the whole thing is very corrupt. I noticed through being in court myself just how many mistakes they made, possibly intentional mistakes, or possibly intentional things to distract me and confuse me, and trip me up, basically. And there's one time when I was in the magistrate's court, and the clerk of the court was trying to get me to plead guilty in the reception area. I hadn't even gone into the courtroom, and he was trying to get me to plead guilty in reception whilst I was waiting to go into my court case. It's like, this is surreal. That's not happening. And you really have to be on your guard in the court, in anywhere in the court, because they're very much going to try and trip you up. They're going to try and confuse you, and they're going to try and make out as though it's just it's a mistake. They're being a bit, making a few mistakes. I don't believe they're making mistakes. I think they know exactly what they're doing, and they'll try their best to trip you up and catch you out, really. And respect you, Rachel, for doing what you did, because you really have to have your wits about you. There was one time when they had me down in 2 different courtrooms on the same time on the same day, and they spelt my name wrong on one of the courtrooms. So, well, how can I be in courtroom 8 and courtroom 6 at the same time? And it's just constant, really. So all I can say is respect to you and question everything, everybody. Yeah, basically that's about it, really.
So David, what was the outcome of your you said you were in court 4 times?
Yeah, 4 times. Once for being dressed as a snowman in a tier 3 area. My defense.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was arrested as a snowman, and believe it or not, they arrested Father Christmas on the same day. Uh, yeah, this was the 19th of December 2020 when I was dressed as a snowman in Whitehall. And my defence was, well, how can I be in a gathering of more than 6 people when there was only one snowman in the area? But they didn't seem to find that funny. So basically, to cut a long story short, every court appearance fell through due to lack of evidence, and they never had any evidence against me because they knew the whole thing was corrupt, and they were arresting me on false pretenses. There was one time when I did plead guilty because I was dressed as a snowman, and I said yes, that was me dressed as a snowman. And they said, and they gave me a £860 fine, I think it was, for that just that one offence. And the judge's words is, we're being lenient on you because you pled guilty early. It would have been £1,400 had you not pled guilty early.
So in other words, you did engage with the process.
I did at that time, yes, yeah, because I think that was actually my first court appearance, and once I experienced that and got stung really badly by pleading guilty, after that I thought, I'm not doing this again. This is not happening again. I'm going to question everything, which I did afterwards, really.
Yeah, because this to me is the core thing, which is why it's important to require a trial by jury, because the trial by jury has they're not just assessing you and the case and whether you're guilty or not guilty, but also they have the power to disregard legislation. And of course, it's the legislation which is unlawful. So what gives any government the right to tell you how you can or cannot dress, or where you can or cannot go, provided you're causing no harm, injury or loss to your fellow man or woman? So this is the core fundamental basis of it, which is what strikes terror into the system when you say, I require a trial by jury. I don't consent to the magistrate's court. I do not consent to the jurisdiction of this court. I require a trial by jury. Now, that's why I asked, is this civil or is it criminal? Because that's a very serious allegation. They are asserting that I am a criminal. So karmically, it's very important for me to to rebut that, because I know that I am not a criminal, because I have not caused harm, injury or loss to my fellow man or woman. It's never my intention. I'm actually a very safe driver. I've driven since I'm 17. I'm now 60. I've never had an accident. And I put in an earlier letter, I'm the kind of driver who slows down to like a crawl if I see a pheasant dithering on the side of the road, And, so it's like, I'm not a criminal. And I think it's really important karmically that no one can put that label. No one can put that label on you lightly, and you should never accept it lightly. It's very important to rebut that at a kind of karmic level, So how can anyone say that you're a criminal for dressing as a snowman?
Well, I actually had a victim surcharge put on my fine in courtroom, and I challenged that and I said, "Why have I got a victim surcharge? Who is a victim?" And they said, "Well, we put that on all fines," and they're very dismissive of it, and they wouldn't tell me who the victim was. There was no victim. It was just me dressed as a snowman.
Yeah, and what happens to all the money? I mean, one thing I forgot to mention as part of this is I did a Freedom of Information Act with West Mercia Police, asking for full information on all the speed cameras and speed fines and statistics over the past 5 years. And actually you can see, and also the evidence that there's a correlation between speed cameras, fines and road safety. And you can see that there is no correlation between number of speed cameras and fines, and they basically said we have no evidence that there's any correlation. So essentially it's just a money-making scam. Because actually the more cameras, the more speeding, the more fines, which basically means everyone's speeding the whole time. The more cameras they put up, the more fines they get. And they're not acting as a deterrent. So it's just a pure money-making exercise. So, and that was with the court as well. So fundamentally challenging the lawfulness of speeding cameras. Anyway, so...
Thank you.
So
One more thing very
yes,
briefly,
go on.
before I hold anything up. They normalised the court being empty, they've normalised the empty courts without a jury by introducing the Coronavirus Act, because they said, well, this is for social distancing reasons. That's why we haven't got a jury anymore. They called it social distancing when we went into the COVID era. So that's all I can say as well.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, David.
Thank you.
So thank you for coming on. Let's go to James, and then we're going to come to Jade. So let's come to James. Hi.
Very informative. Not that I go around speaking.
Oh, James, you've frozen a little there. Is your internet connection a little dodgy?
Probably. You got me now?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I loved your opening talk. The rebel that you are, fighting the system. Great stuff. We're looking forward to seeing you win that one. I think everybody will be. Let's hope so. And them dropping the charges. Well, I don't suppose you'll get an apology, but you might get the charges dropped. False charges, obviously, stupid ones. And I love the snowman story, and I love the comrade video. I watched that. That was great, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Seeing you there, you get around, don't you? I just stay where I am most of the time in Ryde and the Isle of Wight. Anyway, I have been doing moving on to a different subject entirely, as one does. Summer Bacon channels a spirit called Dr. Peebles. A lovely chap. He lived on Earth until he was 99.9 or something. He didn't quite make the 100 in America. And he's given loads of information. It's in my book, and you might even remember reading some of it, some of his communications over the years. And Summer's been doing some more interviews, and I've taken a couple of clips and put them on YouTube and BitChute. And they're quite informative to watch for people. One of them is about shining your light and not basically allowing the darkness, the dark agenda, or whatever you want to call it, those who would fine you for being yourself, try and suppress you, come and smash your front door down, all that sort of thing. Basically, it's a way of standing up to them on a spiritual level. Like that comrade was saying, sending them love, basically, as much as you can. I'm very, very tempted not to, of course, but that might be bringing ourselves down to their level. I did write a book called Escape from Hell, that completely just popped in, where people ended up in the darker realms because they came down to the level of somebody who had hurt them and took revenge, and it drew them into a lower realm as well. So best not to go the revenge route. Best to try and just stand up to things in a kind, loving way as much as you possibly can. Not easy, of course. So I thought I'd just say that, but I just wanted to also say I loved what you've done there. Loved hearing the story of the parking fine fight. You can call it fight, challenge. And
Speeding, the parking was another one. The parking was another one.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on that one.
With all these ongoing challenges, you're doing well. You're brave, fighting all these things. Nobody's come and challenged me, so I haven't got anything to fight. But
Thanks,
I just fight in my own quiet way.
Thanks, James. Thanks for coming on. So I just say, I personally, I didn't see it as a fight. To me, it's not a fight. It's just like standing in my truth and really clearly and eloquently like articulating truth. And it's like truth has a resonance. So I'm like, and I had no fear in that courtroom, interestingly. And it was just like, I was just like shining a light, speaking truth. And it's like, and I wasn't getting angry. There was no sense of fight. It was just pure, like standing in my power, sovereign power, speaking truth. And like the system really can't cope with it. So it was really, really interesting experience. Jade, let's come to you. Thanks, James, and hi to Jade.
Lovely. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi.
Oh, lovely. Hiya, Rachel.
Hi.
I wanted to say a few things. I think the first thing was how steadfast you've been. For many people like myself, because I'm obviously dissociative from the satanic abuses, and I think to watch somebody like yourself steer your heart and have a compass, and over these years to watch you, pace and move forward as you do. I admire that. That's something that I would love to have. So I watch you, and that really does give strength, I think, to a lot of people. I think that consistency, that showing up, and your situation that you've been through, it kind of reminds me of the walls of Jericho, where I think for 6 days they were with horns, ram's horns, going around and making the noise. I know it's that knowing the temperament of when to speak and not to speak, as you said. And then on the seventh day, 7 times, and the walls crumbled. And I feel it's like the more, like you say, the more people challenge. So it sounds like your instance. I think it's great that they're almost checkmate. And you're quite right not to fight. And having a father who was very sadistic, it's about the win, the torment, the struggle, poking and provoking. They love the resistance. And I'm speaking, can't say for everybody generally, but from my experience of satanic types or who may be in that system, it's about the win. So not turning into game for them like you've done and standing in your own power. They can't take you out of those little court squares because you've not, like you say, you've not entered the game. I think that's brilliant. And I mean, going back to the walls of Jericho, I think it's that thing where the judge may never have encountered somebody like you before. So he's going to have to go back to his books. So the ramifications for him to have to turn his nose in a different directions are going to be huge because he's going to second guess himself onwards because he's probably never encountered what he did in your situation, which I think is the whole point. And it seems, you're at the forefront of what you're doing with a lot of other people. And it is that chipping away. On another note, I've been going around Scotland and sitting in ruins and contemplating. I mean, what I find about Scotland is incredible. Is I think just how the sense of defeat and oppression of the people. It's like I know they're big in spirit and soul, but they almost kind of feel they've been quite oppressed, in a smaller sort of way in many ways. The common people. But I kind of go in on my own, and I won't say because I wouldn't want to get the person into trouble, but I went into a museum run by the council and got into a chat with a lovely lady on the reception about the environment. And I've had a chat with a lot of people, just offline, in cafes, independent. Went up to North Yorkshire, Yorkshire Dales and around. And it's just people get talking about the environment and they're just going to say, well, yeah. And a lot of people are, not everybody, I get very generalized, but a lot of people get into this doubtful, well, if the council were doing their job and they hadn't removed the money to look after the infrastructure, then maybe we wouldn't be experiencing most of this. And I just feel, and as somebody in the council said as well, this isn't the council speaking, this is my own opinion, and they're sat on a reception of a huge big museum. And I'm like, so offline, and it's at Walls of Jericho. It's basically people are starting to find their horns, and they're, So yeah. I think what you've done is amazing, and to watch you, I'm just glad you've got your guardian Kobe at your heels. That's lovely. The wings at your heels. So yeah, thank you for all you do.
Thanks, Jade, and thank you too. Thank you for all you do, and we're each of us like chipping away, aren't we, in our own little way. Chipping away with our own little trumpet. And watching your videos and everything you do to speak out.
Yeah, I'm going to do more. I think for me, and again, this is where you've inspired me. I've taken a long time, and I find it hard to put my toes on the earth. Maybe that's all trauma based, but I think because of what I've been through, like I say about telepathy, I know telepathy is a point because I've experienced it, because I've been put in projects. I mean, I can give an example I may have given before, where I was in a room, me and my brother were twins, my brother was in another room, and it's the torture and having to read the cards that were put in front of him. And I vividly can see it now. I'm like way out my body over, seeing the square, the circle, the triangle, to save my brother and myself. So I know telepathy is possible, and I know that we've had a system that has been using disassociation to get the spirit out of the body to see how far it can travel. So I know all of that. I know the potential and the possibilities, but my thing has been, well, to be in the body, and I watch you in the body. That's my challenge, is to become whole, be in the body. And when my toes touch the ground, I feel so much, I sense so much. It's like the earth speaks. But if I'm in crowded places, I can get quite overwhelmed. So
Yeah.
so I'm finding, and I think on the videos, okay, I'll share some experience, but I want to find a way to do it in strength and not be a victim. Because the problem is, for survivors, it's too easy for everybody to come in and make you feel, oh, and you go, no, actually, I'm a high functioning. There's a lot of people like me, and I know, there's people in high profile jobs. It's like we're multifunctional. And I think this is what the superhuman is like. They know actual torture and torment creates a superhuman.
Yeah.
So, and they've and I would say in school, like, just on the legal, I'm having successes, and it's scary. I can't believe. I mean, the fear that you're going through and what you're facing and the armor that you must have on is. And I'm glad you've got Dean with you. I'm at my desk doing it. So I started at University of Gloucester, and I was in a classroom, and I just thought, this is depraved. This is like, these teachers should not be well, the ones I encountered should not be teaching. And basically, our kids are ending up on medication because these are Peter Pans. They haven't grown up. They're not mature, and they're taking their coin. And I kicked back by just putting my name in capitals and talking in the third person, and learning to write in legalese. Jade Leanne Taylor believes blah blah dates, and sending it to them. And I got escalated to their legal and governance immediately. And then it's the test on the parent, adult, child, because the little kid in me is like, oh my God, they've sent me to the headmaster, to the big parent, and I'm scared. And that's why child abuse, they want child abuse, because that's how they control us, because it's the child that gets scared and wants to run away.
Yes.
And they become the parent. So, but I ended up, I stuck fast like you, and I ended up having 2 people on my case, treat me like VIP, got every penny back, and lots of apologies.
Well
and the
done.
same with water, like you said. I mean, you're doing it on a big scale, but it works. Just standing in one socks and going, actually, I'm a mature adult. I'll take on your legal, because what's the worst that can happen? So, well done. You've inspired me. Thank you.
Thanks, Jade. Thanks for coming on. I'm going to come to, we've got quite a few hands up now. We've got Corinne and Roger and Patrick, which may well take us to the end of the call. But if anyone wants to come on, put your hand up. So let's come to Corinne next.
Hi. Oh God, well done, Rachel. Just well done you for standing up. So just ever so quickly, really, there were 2 things. A few months ago, I went to a talk, and Tony Glastonbury was talking, and I don't know if anyone's heard of him, but he's apparently, years ago, he used to work, I think, in engineering with NATO or something. But anyway, basically, he knows all about the corruption of the speed cameras, and he himself was done for traveling at 90 miles an hour. Was it a 30-mile zone? But he knew damn well he wasn't. And so he decided, with all his equipment and the people that he knew and his skill, to really expose what was going on. And one of his specialities is that he helps people who are going through that legal system. He's challenging and standing up with people, helping them with cases like yours. So that was just really interesting, to hear that from someone like him, who actually had all that equipment and could actually call them up on it. And the other thing was, one of our community assemblies, a couple, they had come across someone who, I don't know whether he was a journalist or he was somebody sitting in on a lot of legal cases. And what he realized is that there was some sort of patterning that the judges were using, an ancient formula. I think it's Egyptian, I don't know. But it was like some people for the same crime were getting absolutely clobbered, put in prison, huge fines. And then the next person who maybe come up had exactly the same crime, but they got off. And what this man recognized was that there was some formula that the judges were working to. And yes, he just realized that actually things were very, very, very corrupt. And yeah, I just throwing that in. I just remembered that I'd heard that, and I thought this is very, very interesting, because the judges, you know, their allegiances, they make their they take their oath. It's not for us, it's for the bar or whoever. And so they're working in a completely different system. And so they will make examples of people because of this code that they're working with.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in to the mix.
Interesting. Yeah, thanks for that.
Okay.
But this is one of the things that allegedly Dave says, is like they can't bring a camera to court. You know, a camera is not evidence in truth, because a camera cannot be called as a witness in court, which is why they need to get you to admit, they need to get you to confess. You know, so if you exercise your right to remain silent, like, you're innocent until proven guilty, and that's a very high bar.
Yeah.
Because the camera cannot come into court and say, oh, I definitely saw, you know, them driving the car and going at such and such. And that's before you even question, like, well, it's a public highway, and who gives anyone the right to tell me what I can and can't do on something that I own?
Exactly.
You know, so, okay, anyway,
Great.
lots of love.
Onwards, yeah, I'll mute myself.
So, Roger, hey, Rog, welcome to the call.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'm late. I logged on about 15 minutes late because the link that you sent me didn't work. I don't know why.
Someone else is saying that on the thing, and anyway, Rog, you're looking more and more like God every time you come on here. Do you realise that?
Well, I don't feel like it. Yeah, because if I was, I'd be getting things a bit different from what they really are. Anyway, just put my denture in. No, I managed to get in by going to you know, the Zoom icon on my telephone and putting in the ID.
Okay.
So anyway, I missed the first 15 to 20 minutes, but it's recorded, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'll share the recording.
So will you send it to me by email or?
Yeah, I'll send you the link, as well as I'll put it on the Rachel Speaks Out channel as well, and the People Speak Out channel.
Oh, okay, great stuff. So that's the only thing that I've got to say, which is not very positive, but anyway, that's it. So I'll let you get on with somebody else now.
Well, thanks for coming on, Rog. Thank you. And let's come to Patrick next.
Oh, can you hear me?
Hi, Patrick. Yes. Hi.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. No, I just wanted to mention one thing is, you know, all of these sort of climate change events, or not climate change events, but, you know, these big things that happen, you know, like the fires in Los Angeles, and here we've had this storm in Ireland. And what I notice is, like, along with this sort of big disaster, you have all this sort of incompetence, to use a word, you know, like, oh, the cisterns were empty, you know, the fire department had been scaled back. And similar here in Ireland, I mean, we had a storm, big deal, we have storms here all the time, but it's turned into such a huge thing. This is over 2 weeks ago now. Some people still don't have power. Anyway, I'm just saying there seems something funny about these things. Like, they're so huge, they're so publicized, and it becomes embedded in people's thinking that, oh, you know, climate change must be real. Why? Because we had the fires in Los Angeles, we had the storms in Ireland, we had the floods in Spain. It just seems an element of you know, they're almost being allowed to happen or being made to happen. You know, the normal care is not taken anymore. You know, like, everyone knows Los Angeles. I lived there for 40 years. everyone knows it's a fire-prone area, but for that reason, you know, you're prepared for it. But no, there's no preparation anymore. And the similar thing with Ireland, like there's power outages. This goes on for 2.5 weeks now because, oh, there were trees were near the power lines. Well, why were trees near the power lines? Anyway, it's just something I've noticed, you know, like it just makes me wonder if a lot of these events are literally almost false flags to promote the idea that climate change is real and dangerous. You know, anyway, that's a thought that I have about it.
Yeah, Patrick. Well, you just opened a whole can of worms there. And of course, we could get into all of the discussion on directed energy weapons and all of the different manipulations that are currently underway. But zooming out even further from that, and I've said it quite a few times on Rachel Speaks Out, it's like story after story, creating outrage, creating speculation to hold our attention into the shit show, nightmare shit show, and all the time we're focused on that. It's like we're not focusing on like co-creating, and not even co-creating, visioning, like even just visioning and imagining like what we do want, which is why it felt very important to do that video with Conrad. It's like, here's someone, let's forget the shit show, here's someone who's actually living a self-actualized example of what is possible. And that was like all this nonsense about affordable housing, as Conrad showed in that video, and I encourage everyone to watch it. There he was, he's sitting on 2 acres of land that cost him less than 20 grand, having constructed all of these incredible places, literally from skips, like reclaimed material, and it's just like that is affordable housing, not some kind of Minecraft box built by Bellway Homes on some green land next to a new Aldi. You know, this is true affordable housing, reclaiming our right to live and work the land without interference with government and authorities, provided we're causing no harm, doing our own thing. You know, this is, it's just so inspiring.
I guess I'll have to plead guilty to being caught in the shit show. That is part of my problem. I find it hard to get beyond to something that's actually hopeful or positive.
Yeah, so this is the thing. It's like getting a balance. It's good to be aware of what's unfolding, but equally recognizing the level of the nonsense that is being pumped out now to try and grip our attention, like this whole thing with USAID. It's not USAID, it's USAID, International Development, and what they've been spending the money on. Right. All of this taxpayers' money has been going, you know, like Iraqi Sesame Street and sex change operations. And it's just like they're desperate for storylines to grip and create outrage. And it's actually quite hilarious. It literally is like watching a pantomime.
Yeah, you know. Some people, one guy was sort of speculating that, you know, chemtrails may be a function of this USAID. I think that's kind of guesswork on his part, but it would be nice if it happened. I mean, he claims that there's less chemtrails. I'm be on the lookout for it. It's like somebody must be financing this stuff. There's got to be a budget somewhere. So yeah, I don't know, you know.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So yeah, and that's the thing. How far down the rabbit hole do we want to go? So we've got 9 minutes left. So Patrick, I don't know. Are you complete there? Does anyone else want to come on and speak? Sass, talking of sound and the walls of Jericho coming down. Let's have Sass come on and share.
Hi, Rachel. Hi, everybody. I've been struggling to get on. My computer's just gone a bit crazy today. I don't know whether it's the link or whether it's my computer. But
okay.
I heard everything you said at the beginning. And yeah, good on to you. Well done for standing your guns. And you can trip yourself up very easily, though, can't you, in those courtrooms, unless you are you have a Mackenzie support or someone that knows the lawful system very well.
Yeah.
It's called a court because they want to play with you. They're playing
Yes.
court, and you tend to you don't know the rules of the game. I'm not saying you didn't, but I'm just saying generally you do. But just to sort of change the subject to bringing back all the good things that are happening in the world, because obviously it sometimes gets overcast and overshadowed with all, as you say, with the shit show going on. But just to bring it back down to sort of like a local level, I was just to say how good things work and how how amazing synchronicity is, and maybe people could think about all the synchronistic events that have happened in their life. It'd be lovely, wouldn't it, to get a sort of a book with everybody's, synchronistic, people speaks out synchronicity events, because it's about reminding people of how amazing life is. And it's so easy to forget when you see what's going on. You think it's all doom and gloom and everything's been taken over by the dark forces. But just to put in my two penny's worth, I regularly go out for long walks in nature in these beautiful woods, which I think you've been to, all the Edge Woods. And I go with a friend who's got two spaniels, and they're very, very crazy. And so we go to a very quiet part of the woods where we hardly ever see anybody. So it's quite nice. So I'm talking in the woods, laughing, joking, and we're having this little forest walk, and we're having a bit of banter, and we're sort of pushing each other in the mud. And all of a sudden, I see this couple coming towards, really handsome, gorgeous-looking couple. I think, is this real? Anyway, they start walking towards me, and then this woman shouts out to me, "Are you Sass Bullock?" I thought, what have I done wrong now? Like, so I walked over to her, and she said, "Oh my God, this is absolutely outrageous." I said, "Why?" She said, "Somebody's just spoken to me a couple of days ago about you at a party I was having." And she said, "I'm very poorly. I'm being given a diagnosis of 3 to 6 months to live." And she said, "I maybe need to get hold of somebody who does distant healing, or I've heard of someone in London." And this friend of hers said, "No, no, you ought to go to Sass Bullock." And she had never heard of her. And she said, "Let me play you some of her stuff that she's been online." So she plays this, whatever, I don't know what it was, some video. And she said, so I heard that a couple of days ago. And she said, "I recognised your voice as you were coming through the woods." And she said, "I'm taking that as a guidance that I'm going to maybe use your services." So anyway, a couple of days later, we got chatting, and I ended up talking to her. We went for a nice walk. And I said to her, she said, "Would you be happy to join my team?" Got a few people helping me out. But it was just like, she said she had to go with me because it was so divine that literally this had happened. So the universe is always working in our favor, if we can remember that. And even though sometimes you feel really downtrodden with what's going on, just those little things, it's like the universe going, "Come on, you're getting warmer, everybody, you're getting warmer." And I'm sure lots of things like that have happened to people, other people as well. But it was just such a beautiful meeting. Now, it may interfere with me hosting this. That's the only thing, because it's on a Monday that I'm going to be able to see her. But it may just for the first few weeks when I'm seeing her, just to get into the flow of it. But it's absolutely very heartwarming that all this interconnection that's going on a different level is all moving us forward to something so much more positive, so much more beautiful, and back into the Garden of Eden. But it takes some people to stand up to this system to say, "We're not accepting this, we're not consenting to this," because obviously otherwise the whole plan is going to unfold unless we stand in our power. But holding up the energy in our heart that the universe is always working in our favor, you're getting warmer, and just to help people remind, the signs all over, the signs constantly being shown us, maybe in here in the radio, or maybe a van going past with the sign of love on it, or it's just so beautiful. So just try and keep the faith that there is a great beauty going on in the universe, and we have got the odds are in our favor.
Yeah, thanks, Sass, for reminding us of that. And you're absolutely right. It's like that energy, that synchronicity, that flow it's so powerful, and it's so easy to access it, which is exactly why they need to keep us focused off that, because it's so powerful. Because with our mind and imagination and intention, Like we can manifest, like master manifesting things very easily and very quickly. So, and it doesn't take all 8 billion on the planet, just enough of us who get what's going on, who get the game, and who are cutting through the illusion with our words and our energy, and we're visioning in a different future reality. And it's like, wow, there's enough people working on that and focusing energy on it. Not work, I don't like that word work. Focusing energy, intention, imagination, voice, sound, healing. So yeah, it's very, very interesting and exciting.
And I'd just like to add that on Friday, the 14th, it's the Day of Love for Mother Earth, and it's World Sound Healing Day. And everyone around the planet who's involved in these initiatives by Jonathan Goldman, I think it's his 26th year. I've done it for 14 years, holding a space for people to come into their sound and just to release their beauty from their heart and their voice. So at 12 o'clock in our country, if anybody wants to send 15 minutes of the sound from our hearts, just continuous sound, ahring, it's the sending a wave, a tsunami of love across the planet, and it hits everybody across the time zone. 12 o'clock, everybody does it at 12 o'clock time zone. It sends this wave of positive energy to say to the earth, we're one with you, feel you. We want to heal everything, all the planetary aspects of our consciousness. Please listen to us because we're sending out this love. So that's on the 14th, Friday, this coming Friday, World Sound Healing Day. And if you go to Jonathan Goldman, you'll see he does this initiative, and you can either join in with your own event, or you can just go into his sound pod and enter into it with your own voice. And I'm just saying how powerful that is. Just those little 15 minutes of your time at 12 o'clock, if anybody's available, I really highly recommend. It's a beautiful feeling. Or come together with somebody else, bring out your crystal sounding bowls, your drums, and just going near water is good. So if you're near the sea, Rachel, that would be fantastic, because the sea holds memory, the water holds memory, and we're starting to shift the vibration through the energies through the water.
Yeah,
So
thank you for reminding us, Sass. St. Valentine's Day on Friday, the day of love. Let's make every day a St. Valentine's Day. I'm just going to let Agnieszka have the last word, because I know she works a lot with water. It may be that she wants to add something to that. Agnieszka, do you want to have the last word today? Thanks, Sass.
Hi, how are you? I just wanted to have the last word to congratulate you. Oh my goodness, listening to you was just so inspiring, so much courage, so well done, because just hearing it alone is really giving us a lot of courage. Talking about water, the waters are still talking to us all the time. I have just come back from the north, and I've used the water in a beautiful ceremony, and it really shifts the resonance so deeply. So if you are willing to give water more space in your hearts, you will see miracles happen in your life. So anything water, I'm always yes, go for it.
Yeah.
I wanted to as well, maybe there's some interest. I've just come back from a beautiful gathering with Association of Foragers, and there's some lovely projects that I would like maybe talk a little bit more in our future meetings about, and it's encouraging great engagement with the foraged foods for health benefits, not just physical but emotional as well. I'm going to drop a link here to a project called Wild Biome, and it's run by Monica Wild, and it's absolutely amazing because there's research carried before and after the closure of the project. People look at their blood results, and it's something too positive to finish off with. That we've got so many resources available to us in the woodland, even in our gardens. So just shifting towards what we have and not obsessing so much about what we don't. And one last thing I would like to mention, and those of you who've got my details, just get in touch. I'm running in association with Psychedelic Society, speed dating with a touch of cacao and amanita to engage with our hearts, to connect with ourselves and others. So drop me a line if any of this sounds of interest, and lovely to see you.
Is that a Valentine's Day speed dating using Amanita and cacao, did you say?
Yeah.
Oh, how amazing.
Yeah, right.
I love it.
Yeah, I will drop
Wonderful.
my details to those who are close to London. I will give you more information.
Cool.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
super speedy. Thank you for all you do, everyone, and thank you, Rachel.
Thanks, Anishka. Thanks for coming on. And thanks to everyone for bearing with us and staying on. Let's just come back to gallery view. Give us a wave. Lots of love to you all. Thanks for coming on. Have a great week. Have a wonderful Valentine's Day celebration of love. And yeah, so see you in 2 weeks' time, whether that's SAS or whether it's me back in the hot seat. 2 weeks' time on Mondays, 12 noon. Lots of love. And I will keep you updated as to what happens next with my court drama. Bye for now.